Welcome, everybody, to the Bungalows for Bachelors Late Night Learning. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know when that intro's playing, I've got my headset all the way up, cranked to the max, because the one and only Green Observer at Green Observer on YouTube, check him out. He makes some bomb music, and man, he gets me pumped up for my own show every single time. And if you want great beats, that's where you should go get them. So, shout out to the Green Observer. I believe Green Observer is also observing in the chat today because he is ready to learn and he is excited. And he's going to have to be putting up with my coughing just like everyone else because I've been sick for the last who knows how long. And I'm pretty sure that we're just going to continue riding that wave for the next 3 years. We'll see how long it lasts. But that said, if you want to learn something about construction and you don't know much, if you want to like help your ma tear out a bathroom in her house, or if you want to help your nana, tear out her carpet, or heck, if you want to build a house for your parents one day because they're old and decrepit and they can't do it themselves, then you ought to check out, excuse me, one more, Bungalows for Bachelors on YouTube. I've got a whole bunch of free content. And if you want more, I've got more on a school server. That's SKOOL. If you go to www.school.com/BFB success, link is in the description below. You can get a whole bunch more stuff from me, whether it's like community chat or, messaging or whatever it may be. I've got a home building program. I've got a framing design program, and soon to come to you, if you are part of the school community, is I realized the other day that I was going through the home building program because I was trying to refresh myself on something, and I realized now it was late at night, but still I was watching my own program, and I started nodding off. I'm going to be a little bit honest, guys, and so I realized like, okay, maybe somebody needs to compact this down. Inject a little bit of energy into it, make it a little shorter. And so I'm working currently on developing the condensed home building program for those of you that have a very valuable time, which is all of you. Thank you for watching and spending your time here. But I'm going to creating a condensed home building program for you guys as well. I am going to be working on developing a home design program. I'm interested in helping all of you out there who want to learn how to build and how to do all this stuff. Like every project starts with a design package of some kind, right? So I'm going to start sharing some of the software I'm using, some of the skills I've got. And like there's some very approachable software packages for people who want to do their own project in terms of pricing. And so I want you guys to all get better. And we got Tam in the chat. Thank you, Tam, for showing up. We got Tam and the Green Observer. Appreciate you guys. So anyway, that's going to be coming out. I want you all to get better and get smarter. So that is going to be on the school server at some point, which is why you should join. Now, something else I want to shout out is a personal affect of mine, also known as the coin Hex. If you are not part of the world's first blockchain certificate deposit, you should be. Check out Richard Hart, check out the Hex ecosystem, check out all the Richard Hart coins, you name it. It's a great world of decentralized money, and I think it's where the future is going, and I want everyone to be a part of it. So check it out. Now, if you are someone, I swear, I promise we're going to talk about what eventually, but if you're somebody who wants to learn how to cook, right? We're all here to learn. So if you want to learn how to cook, you ought to check out up and coming to you, the Brothers Two of Them cookbook. It is going to be packed with information, with delicious recipes, and with a good time. And we're going to be printing some fixed number of copies. They're going to be hand signed, potentially hand delivered, depending on where you are. And yeah, it's going to be once in a lifetime opportunity to learn how to make some really healthy meals that make you big and strong and capable of climbing towers and stuff like that. So Brothers Two of Them cookbook coming soon to you. I'm just teasing it for now. You may notice there's this big SID behind me, and there's a big old BFB up here. Excuse me. Water. We do it live and we do it sick because if we didn't do it if we did it when we weren't sick, we would never do it. So, bungalows for bachelors, we all know what that is. That's if you want to learn about construction and how it can make your life better. Stevenson Integrated Designs is the name of my company. That is how I pay my bills. So if you are getting to the point where you want to do a construction project and you want a really quality, quick design, that's what I do. So residential construction, you want to remodel or you want to build a house or whatever it is, that's what I do. So check it out if you want to at Stevenson Integrated Designs on Instagram for some of the past things that I've drawn. Now, we can finally get into the topic today, which is wonderful wood. All right. Now, what makes wood so wonderful? Well, breathing is hard. I appreciate y'all bearing with me. It's the Green Observer, guys. He made such bomb music at the very beginning that I just got way too into it. And now I'm all pumped up and my blood's flowing and it's just driving my throat crazy here. All right. So wonderful wood. Well, I called it wonderful wood mostly because I wanted to try to get your attention and get you to watch this. We're going to be talking about wood and the supply chain of wood a little bit today. And I wanted to talk about this topic today because I had a very personal experience earlier today where oh, wow. I was looking at the price of wood in one particular place. Oh, my goodness. And this wood, I'll what's the price here? Let me think of the number. So I wanted to buy a 4x8, right? A 4x8, 16 feet long. And it was priced at like $100, something like that. And I was like, oh, whew, that's a lot of money for one piece of wood. But like, hey, it's a big piece of wood. There's a lot of board footage in that, right? A lot of volume of wood. So maybe that's fair. And it was Doug fir, so it's good quality of wood. And then I promptly turned around and shopped at the next place I was looking at, and it was half the price. And I said, hold on. We can't, whoa, no, half the price? What's going on here? And so I asked the guy at the half price store, I was like, bro, why is your price half of the other place? And he is like, well, it's because we're buying it from the same place for the same price. And we've decided that we would like to be competitive with the market. And they've decided that they would like to charge the highest possible prices that the retail market will support. And it's like, well, what does that mean? What is the retail market? The retail market is the normies. It's the guys like you and me who don't have contractor accounts. We're not building 10 houses a year. We're not doing tons of remodels. We're just people who go to like Home Depot and Lowe's and McCoy's and whatever. And we just buy something for our project. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Businesses are entitled to charge what they want because everyone's got the right to choose what they want to buy. Now, here's the thing. This one particular, the more expensive store is located in town. Much more conveniently located. And so they happen to know they're just going to get more people that are going to go in the store to buy a thing, take it out, yada, yada, yada. So that said, you ought to be aware if you're going to go to a store and buy something. Now, if you're going to like a big name, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, those are going to be fairly consistent because they're all kind of competing in the same marketplace, this retail marketplace. But if you're going to have a big project and you're going to be considering buying like a $60,000 to $80,000 lumber package or something like that, you're going to be considering looking at a real supplier, a real building supplier, someone who's got more supply, more lengths choices, more species choices, you name it. They're going to generally be like more capable. The employees are also generally going to know what they're doing more. Like they're going to be better at helping you out. They're going to know more about the industry. It's going to be generally just going to be a better experience, but you get what you pay for. Now, sometimes those distributors will not let retail marketers in. Like they're not going to accept new customers because they have so much money coming from the regular builder business. They don't want regular Joes walking around the floor. That's not the kind of business they run. And that's fine. But if you can get into those places, then you're going to sometimes the prices are going to be higher. Like if you get a package at McCoy's or a package at Lowe's or a package at like let's say in San Antonio, there's 84 lumber, right? Those are going to be three different sets of prices for three different reasons, right? So first of all, you have to know like when you're buying lumber, you're not buying the same lumber everywhere. Okay. There are different species, and species are basically qualities or grades that like are going to bring certain aspects of ease of use and straightness to your project. You buy more expensive wood, you're going to get a better product. You're going to get a straighter result. I've got a bedroom wall over here in this apartment. And I put a whiteboard on it, right? As you know, for bungalows for bachelors teaching. And the whiteboard is half an inch away from the wall in the center of the whiteboard. And it's at the edge. Like on the edges, it's touching the wall, right? So in that like 3-foot span, my wall deviates by half an inch. Now you can't really see that in regular lighting because the light's just hitting the wall flat. But if that was a hallway, oh man, you'd be seeing all kinds of shadows and craziness. But that said, the kind of lumber you're buying matters. So different distributors are going to be buying different kinds of lumber because they're serving different markets, right? So generally speaking, the Lowe's and the Home Depots will stock a like a whitewood general name like a whitewood, spruce pine fir, very light, low density lumbers because they're cheaper. And like frankly, a lot of home projects are they don't need like crazy fancy lumber, and it's not a big deal. And so if you're gonna go, plus if you're gonna go to the store anyway, and you're gonna be picking out your lumber, you're gonna be picking out of the stack, you're gonna pick the straight ones out, and you're gonna leave all the curly ones left over for all the short people who can't afford to like pick up the wood and reach to the stack. Like you're gonna get straight wood mostly anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But like if you're buying bundles, there's a word for it. The word's not coming to mind, but basically a big a bunk or whatever the name is for the stack of lumber where it's still banded. And we'll talk about banded in a second, but basically we'll talk about it now. Being banded is where the lumber has not even come undone from the mill where it was cut and stacked. So if that's the case, that lumber is going to be very straight when it's still banded because it's been held, it's been restrained. You put a stack of that in the sun and uncut the bands, and that wood's going to go where it wants to go. And that's where you're going to see that deviation in species to see like what is good and what is not. You get a stack of Doug fir, very dense, very strong, very consistent and straight, and you get a stack of that whitewood stuff, and you will see a big difference. So different grades, different qualities, different species, distributors stock different kinds because they're serving different purposes in different markets. So just be aware of what you're buying. Generally, if you want like a good, strong, dense piece of wood, you're going to be buying southern pine or Doug fir. Those are going to be the two more common ones. And for like framing purposes of a house, if you're doing in like interior millwork and like fancier woods and stuff, you're going to get into like different kinds of oaks and other hardwoods and like other fancy stuff that I'm not going to talk about because I'm more concerned with the structural stuff. But yeah, so distributors are going to have different stuff. And that's going to drive this different pricing stuff. In addition to that, because they're employing people who have different backgrounds, people who are better at their job that know more are worth more money, right? Generally speaking. And so if a lumber company, everyone's buying the same trees, right? So if the lumber company is charging a certain price for their wood and it's a little bit more than the other lumber company, it's entirely possible that that price is marked up because that what's included in you buying the wood is you buying the employee that's working there, right? A little portion of that is going to pay that employee. And so if there's generally a higher markup on the wood to pay more to the employees to get more valuable employees, that's something you could be paying for, right? And generally, the more you pay people, the better people you're going to get, which means the service you get is going to be there, going to be better. You're going to know more. And when you call and have a problem, like, oh, like the wood fell off the truck and I need some help, or I need a return, or I have this question, you're just generally going to get better service. And when you're dealing with a home construction project where you're either modifying your existing house, which is a nightmare because you're modifying your existing house, or you're building a new house, which is a nightmare because you're building a new house. And like there's a million things that can go wrong. So when you're already in that like stressed setup, you don't want additional stresses. And so when you have a good building supplier, it just kind of makes your life a little easier. So worth doing. Now, where does the wood kind of come from? So we grow it in trees, right? The wood comes from trees. And the trees come from the ground where they're planted. Now, trees are heavy. Wood is a very heavy product. It's one of the most like wood is it's a huge commodity market. Like there's just tons of wood being used everywhere all the time for building all kinds of stuff. Right? We build tables, we build houses, we build all kinds of stuff out of the wood. The amount of wood we throw away when we're done with that is insane. Like we just consume a lot of wood in this country for what we build. And so because of that, like what you don't want to do is I don't want to pay for wood that's from, let's say I'm in Texas. I don't want to pay for wood that's from Washington because what I'm paying for is I'm paying for the wood and then I'm paying for the gas in the truck and the driver time and the cost of the roadway infrastructure and all this stuff that was related to the transportation of the material down to where I'm at. And so generally you're going to be building out of woods that are more local, which is why in the South, we're going to have a lot of southern pine, hint the southern part, right? Southern yellow pine. It's a good strong wood. You can still buy Doug fir, but it's going to be more expensive down in the South because it's less available than pine. Up north, you're pretty much going to be dealing with pine and a bunch of like hemfirs and whitewood species and stuff. Sorry, not pine. You're going to be dealing with there's lots of pine up there, but Doug fir. Like if you want a good piece of wood up there, Doug fir is very reliable. And so because it's like everywhere, tons of big Doug fir forests, the price is much more reasonable than if you try to get Doug fir in Texas. So the availability of the area you're living and building has a lot to do with where you're supplying these materials. Building materials are heavy, and so you don't want to pay for those expenses. Excuse me. So it comes from forests, and the forests are theoretically close by. Now, what does it do when they're in the forest? So we got these logger dudes who go out there with a bunch of axes, and they start chopping down these trees with their axes, and they fall the trees. And then once the tree is fallen, they come over with a bunch of really strong guys, and they pick up the tree with their hands, and they put the tree in the back of a logging truck. And the hardest part about getting the tree in the back of the logging truck is not slipping on the mud and dirt and rocks that are on the ground because it's very slippery when you're logging usually. So yeah, if they can overcome the weight of the tree and the mud, they can get it in the logging truck. But no, nowadays we use lots of equipment. We use lots of magical hydraulic, big heavy stuff that climbs over roots and rocks and you name it. There's not a lot of there are still like guys on the ground, of course, that are like rigging and picking and doing lots of stuff like that. But there's a lot of equipment nowadays. I'm going to address the chat here for a second. Oh, we got Mr. Will Stevenson in the chat. Like that smash button. I didn't read that before I read that, and so I said it out loud. So yeah, guys, like that smash button. Make sure you subscribe, sub, and all of the above. Oh man, we got the bright green observer in the chat. This is the real green observer, unfortunately. And then the other one says it's an imposter. So I will leave it up to you guys to decide who is real and who is not. Let's find out. There's a red observer as well. He's claiming that how do we know this guy isn't the imposter? That's true. I would argue that because he was here at the very beginning at 7:24 p.m. before the show started at 7:30 p.m. Central, he was ready to observe. And so either he's an imposter and he's very good at it, or he's the real G because he was here. We'll see. But Will says that he likes investing in good workers. Good suggestion. Yes, it is good to have good workers because they're going to solve a lot of problems for you instead of make you more problems. And generally, the more money you give them, it should turn around and make you more. And so that's a good reason why you should be doing that. And he says to make sure to join Sam's school server to learn more about this kinds of stuff and chat with the community. Absolutely. That's what I made it for. It's free. Come on in, everyone. I just want y'all to get smarter. So check it out. And one yellow observer had to ask that, do they step on branches while carrying the log? Now, I have personally not worked in commercial tree logging as a logger. I have fallen some small trees myself, but certainly never had to do this. And I will say there are probably branches that are stepped on, and that makes it tricky to carry massive, 100-foot logs. So I'd have to say. But the blue does not observe, says to not pay attention. So I'm sorry, blue does not observe, but yikes. And last vote, Will puts his money down on the OG green observer. I'm going to put my money there too. We're going to find out. We're going to find out at the end. It's going to be revealed. So anyway, trees come from forests. They are logged. Once they are logged, they are transported to mills. And I'm generally going to be referring to where is the lumber that builds houses coming from? Because that's really what I'm concerned about. I don't really care about the pulp that makes paper. I don't care about the pulp that makes pellets or whatever, right? So we care about the wood that makes houses. So it's going to get sent to mills where it's going to be chopped up into all kinds of dimensional boards, depending on the size of the tree, the roundness. There's all kinds of crazy science and now modern technology that allows us to super efficiently get the maximum board footage out of a tree that as possible, right? And so basically, they used to be done by hand, but basically think about it this way. Every tree is round, right? And so what you want to do is all these boards are cut lengthwise out of the tree. And so if you've got this round shape, you've got all this, you're cutting rectangles or squares or whatever out of this shape. And you somehow have to maximize the board footage, the number of boards you get out of this thing, and minimize the wasted material that's left over on the outsides. And so what happens nowadays is we've got basically computer programs that scan that circle, and they take into account the length of the tree and how bendy is the tree, or is the tree changing diameter, is the tree changes diameter along its length. There's all kinds of factors. And so basically they figure out what to cut out, and then that tree is sent in, and it's basically sawn to make this dimensional lumber in a bunch of different size boards. And then the boards are sorted out and down the line and all this stuff. Anyway, so that's where you get the trees cut into boards, which are the things that we can use. The boards are stacked. They are going to be at some point, if they're going to be kiln dried, which is most lumber is kiln dried these days. What's going to happen is they're going to take all the lumber, they're going to stack it, and they're going to band it, and it's going to get all compressed and tight, and it's still straight because it just got cut off the tree. So it's, straight, but it's very, very moist because it's very green. It's very fresh lumber. And you can't build with green lumber because it will shrink a lot, and it's a bad idea. It's also considerably weaker when it's really wet. I mean, it's just like a spaghetti noodle. If you hold a bunch of spaghetti noodles in one hand, a whole box of them, and you try to break it, it's pretty strong, right? But imagine if you cooked the center of all that spaghetti, it would be bendy, right? It's the same thing with wood. You don't want it moist, and you don't want to build houses with spaghetti either. So we're going to build with dry wood instead. So, so you've got the wood. It's cut up. It's stacked. They're going to throw it in a big oven, a big ventilated oven. And what it's going to do is it's going to basically speed up the process of drying out the wood, get all the moisture out of the wood so it can shrink down. And it's very important when they're doing this that they are controlling the shape of the lumber. If you were to just throw it all in a stack and let it dry out, the boards would turn all kinds of squirrely and noodly and stuff. But what happens is because they everything's bound and tight and straight and packed together, when they dry it out, it has a tendency to be straight as it will, it dries out in the same shape that it was. Now, the reason when you unband it and it sits out in the sun and it gets rained on and it dries, then it gets rained on and then it dries, the reason that it will go squirrely at that point is because there are residual stresses in those wood fibers that are trying to push the board back to where it used to be so that it can relax. Finally, that's what the stresses are. There are little knots and things that are like, the board's like, I don't really want to be straight. I'd really rather be like over here. Oh, okay, that's better. That's what the board's trying to do. So they're going to dry it out, get all that moisture out of it, and they're going to ship it off. Generally, it's going to be shipped to like the stores that are going to be selling it and it's just going to be, stored. And lumber actually moves quite quickly, especially for like places that are building houses, right? They're consuming a lot of lumber. I mean, imagine one house is generally going to take like one bunk or maybe two bunks of studs, right? That's like, I forget the numbers, 100, 200 studs bunker or something like that, right? It's a bunch. So whenever you see these things driving down the highway and there's just big stacks of wood on a tractor trailer or a truck, it's just, oh man, it makes my heart pitter patter because it's like, oh, someone's going to go build something with that. And that's good wood right there. And it just makes me so happy. And sometimes they package it up with plastic too, keep it dry, which is nice. But anyway, that's going to go to the distributors. It's going to get put on shelves or it's going to be left in its stack. And then if people order like a big quantity, they're just going to get the bundled stacks. And that's good. Now, one of the things you got to do when you get a stack like that is because it's still bound. If you're buying, especially if you're buying like a cheaper, like species of wood, you're going to, oh, thank you, Will. A full bunk unit, 294 2x4 studs. Excellent. So if you are using a cheaper species, as soon as you snap those, bands and you open it up to use it, it's gonna, the clock is started. So one of the things you want to try to keep in mind is that once you do that and you want to start building a house, when you're framing, like a lot of the studs and a lot of the stuff in the house is sort of unrestrained compared to like when it's tight and packed up in the bunk. But a lot of stuff is going to get re-restrained when you framed with it. Like your ceiling joists, for example, right? They're packed up in the bunk. They're let loose because you cut the bands, and then you like laid them all out and cut them and put them on your ceiling. And they're literally just floating out there in the world. Like they're restrained on one end and the other end, but they're just floating out there. But imagine how much more restraint they have, especially for exterior walls. As soon as you nail all that sheeting on, you're re-restraining the wood and you're grabbing it again. So there's kind of a clock ticking when you're building that house. You really want that to be locked in and framed and like braced off and everything restrained so it can stop moving. And then you want like cover it out of the rain so that the rain's not going to make anything expand. Like you don't want expansion problems and stuff. So anyways, yeah, that's what happens. That's how you get the wood. And otherwise it's going to get opened up in the bands at Home Depot and Lowe's on the stores for you to pick out. And that's why you see frequently piles of like, oh, look, a bunch of curvy boards in the back where people were digging through it because they want to pick out the straight ones. And man, I don't know if they ever have like deals where like, hey, we got a bundle of curly ones if you want them 75% off or something. Because man, that stuff is not very useful. Let me hit the chats again here. Oh boy, let's see. We got Tam again. The Yellow Observer is the most fun with a laughy face. I think so. Maybe. It's going to be close. It's going to be between the one Yellow Observer, the blue dot, the blue but does not observer, the red observer, the green observer, and the bright green observer. It's going to be close. It's going to be between one of those for sure, though. Sam, I appreciate how you break things down the way that you do. Of course. Yes, there will be no dancing on this show, but I try to make things fairly straightforward with construction, at least, so that everyone can learn. One Yellow Observer says, I'd build my house out of spaghetti, and you should not do that. One Yellow Observer, that would be a bad idea. From Mr. Blue, some fun comparisons for sure at Tam. Yes, indeed. And we've got the full bunk unit, and that's, oh, hold on, there's more. Bright Green Observer, I'm envisioning these mad wood bits running around everywhere before they can be restrained. That is exactly what's going on, guys. You don't even understand. Like you cut the bundle and you leave one day, you come back the next day, and literally the whole stack's like, "Ugh," and like stuff's falling off because it's no longer restrained. It's just yeah, not a great thing. And then we've got oh boy, Tam Tam in the chat. The more protection, the better, with a smiley face. Yes, I thought it was a winky face, and that this was a family-friendly show here, guys. So it's not a winky face though. So appreciate that, Tam Tam. Yes, we like the wood to stay out of the rain. Ooh, I'm a teenager again here. Oh, I'd super chat to see you dance on the show. Well, when the channel's monetized and I can take super chats, I can pretty much be bought. Everyone's got a price for something, right? It's a family friendly show, but that's pretty appropriate. So yeah, I'll dance for money. All right, back into it here. So moisture. You don't want to build with moist wood, guys. If you've ever like done a deck and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna try to keep this a little like cheaper budget deck, I'm just gonna buy some treated pine. Basically, it's just regular southern pine that's been soaked and compressed with pressure so that the soakingness goes into the wood and it super saturates the wood with like this special copper liquidy compound thing. I used to know what it was made of. And it basically kills all the germies, and it makes things not want to grow in the wood, and it makes things not want to eat the wood. And it's generally just what we do when we want to treat materials. They're going to be outside in the sun, in the rain, in the dirt, you name it, getting exposure to all that stuff. It's going to make it last a little bit longer. So these treated materials, the way this works is they're soaked in this vat of stuff, right? And like that makes their moisture content go like crazy high. They're not just green, they're like super green, right? They're just absolutely drenched. If you ever picked them up from the store, literally off the shelf, if you go to Home Depot and buy like touch treated piece of wood, at least like the up north where it's like the brown treated incised wood with the little slices in it, that's a little different. It can still be like that. But definitely down in the south where you see like a green color for your treating, if you like dig one or two boards down, the wood's it's going to feel wet. Like it's literally soaked in moisture. And so one of the problems is you don't want to buy that off the shelf, go home, cut it up into bits and build something beautiful with it. Because what's going to happen, guaranteed, unless you live in an underground or underwater house where it's more moist, is it's going to dry out, right? Natural wood moisture content's like 10 to 15%, something, right? So it's going to go from 80, 90 mark way down to 10 to 15% being dry. And that will make it shrink. And wood shrinks immensely with its thickness and its width, right? The diameter of the tree. You imagine it that way. Trees, like the length doesn't change very much because it's just not cellularly built that way. But yeah, if you put a bunch of deck planks down and they are gapped like 1/8 of an inch, next summer they're going to be gapped like 1/2 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch. They're going to be they shrank way a lot. Way super a lot, super duper, they shrank. So there's pretty much no way around that if you're going to build a pine deck. You pretty much either, if you have to do it immediately, then you are going to you're going to basically either like squeeze the boards together when you install it, and then when they shrink, they're gonna generate a gap, or you just buy composite deck boards, or like stack your lumber and literally like wait a year before you build your deck. Like no one wants to do that. That kind of sounds crazy, right? Anyway, it's just one of those things. Just got to be aware, but definitely don't leave gaps in the treated pine at the beginning when they're wet, because they're going to dry out. So that said, there's kind of there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that could drive why one guy's piece of wood was $100 and the other guy's piece of wood was $50. I know where I'm going to buy it though. I'm going to buy the $50 one because I'm a cheap son of a gun. And so, hey, the market is the market, right? Let's hit the chats one more time. Oh boy, the Red Observer says when building a deck, make sure to use Schaefer's New Zealand style deck sealant. And of course, for the really big gaps, you have to follow it up with the big black caulk because nothing fills a big gap like a big black caulk. We got Green Observer here. I agree, Red. I use that and my neighbors always compliment my deck. That's right, boys. I'm glad the product works so well for you guys. Will Stevens and Dr. Seuss, they shrink. Yes, correct. Blue, but does not observe. If you got a hole in the deck, make sure to use the right type of caulk. Absolutely. You know, ironically, you guys, don't put caulk on your deck, like ever, for any reason. That is not where that product belongs. Please don't do that. Ever, even if it's big and black. I know the big black ones are tempting, but extra large holes require the African style caulk. Yes, indeed. And the Green Observer would like some deck picks. I don't actually, I have a lot of deck picks in my computer, but I'm not going to share them. Again, family friendly show. Appreciate you guys hanging out in the chat, having a good time. So I'm going to need that notification to stop dinging because it's dinging and it might be coming in the microphone. And I don't really know how to fix it right now immediately on the spot. So we'll see. Anyways, guys, shout out to everybody in the chat. Y'all some G's. I appreciate you all watching, joining in, learning stuff about wood. We got Tam, we got Green. I'm not going to try to pull them all up. That's going to be a lot of work. Green Observer, one Yellow Observer, Blue Dot. We got Will Stevenson. We got the Red Observer. We have one Yellow Observer, the bright Green Observer. And of course, we also have bungalows for bachelors in the chat. I appreciate you guys showing up, hanging out, and having a good time and learning with me here. If you want to learn more about wood and houses and all this stuff, check out the school server. It's for everyone. If you want to learn more, it's not for people who don't want to learn more because they should just not, just don't. But for all those other ones who are cool, check it out. Got lots of free content coming on YouTube again. Oh man. Oh, hey, I got a podcast coming up, guys. Samuel Stevenson podcast. I got a new guest. It is going to be a lady named JC. That is not a handle. That is her name. Her name is JC. And met her in a coffee shop. She is a forestry expert here in this local area. I happen to be in Texas. And she knows a lot about the products, exports, all this stuff. So if you want to learn about what the forestry service and industry is like here in Texas and what kind of stuff do we do with wood here, you should check it out. It's going to be May 29th. I do believe it's a Wednesday and it's going to be in the evening sometime. So that's coming up in the works. Of course, if you want to get better at cooking, again, guys, I cannot say I cannot speak highly enough of this cookbook that's coming out. You guys got to get it. Got to get your hands on one. Hit me up if you want one. There's going to be pre-orders at some point. But yeah, thank you guys for coming and watching and learning. I hope this has been insightful. I hope you like my nice blue light that I have here. It makes me feel better. And of course, if you need any house plans or you need anybody that might need house plans, SID, Stevenson Integrated Designs. It is literally the best, fastest designer in the United States at this point, at least. So you guys ought to check it out. Appreciate you for coming, guys. I will see you next week when I have probably recovered from my cough, but we'll find out at that time. Now, won't we? See you later. do, 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 do.